Hi everyone, my name is Paul Connor. I'm the founder, instructor, and industry relations lead at the Digital Animation Center at the University of Colorado. Since 1996, I've been a modeler and digital sculptor based in Denver, Colorado. I'm a Maya certified instructor and freelancer for the entertainment industries. Most recently, I was an IPAX fellow at Sony Picture Imageworks. In this course, we're going to learn some key fundamental concepts and some very advanced concepts for working with polygon modeling. Some of the key takeaways from watching this course are going to include learning how to troubleshoot your models, breaking down complex shapes into very basic forms so we can model them easier, correct edge flow, geometry amount, and tension, using primitives to create more complex forms, organizing our scene, and working with a very, very complex scene and a lot of geometry. This course is going to be incredibly intensive, and we're going to go over a lot of material. By the end of the training, you'll have a greater understanding of creating and troubleshooting your geometry and making sure that it's all formed correctly. I'm really excited to work with digital tutors and share all of these techniques with you. So sign in, sign up, strap yourselves in, and let's get started. In this lesson, we're going to talk about the Maya interface and what we can do to customize it to make our job of modeling easier and more efficient. All right, so as a modeler, of course, you have to know edge flow very well. You have to know forms very well. You need to know the tools that you have at your disposal. But one very important aspect of being a modeler is being quick and efficient at what we do. In a studio environment, you're very much expected to crank these models out as fast as you can. Time is always money, and that's expected in a large studio. So if you take a look at this, we've got the entire interface up, and there's a lot of stuff that we don't need here, and we're kind of taking away a lot of real estate that we could utilize to make our modeling a little bit easier. So what we're going to do here is we're going to kind of chunk away at our interface here. We're going to get rid of some stuff that we don't need, and we're going to talk about making a custom shelf to make our job a lot easier as we go. So first and foremost, you can see that we've got all of our animation controls here. We've got our timeline and our slider. We have an area here to bring up mel commands and our tool tips down here. This is stuff that we just don't need, and you can see it's taking up a lot of space here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down my space bar to bring up my hotbox. And over here in this area, I'm going to click and hold, and you can see that we get a marking menu for all of the elements that are inside of our interface here. So first, I'll drag down to time slider to highlight it, and I'll let go. You see that goes away. Now I'll drag down to the range slider, and that goes away. Over here, we've got our help line, and finally, we've got our command line that we can get rid of. Now, if you do need all of that information, if you're typing in mel and stuff like that, you can always bring that back very easily, of course, by just hitting your hotbox and going to, say, the command line to bring that up. I'll go ahead and get rid of it for now. But you can see that freed up a lot of space that we can utilize here to get our modeling done. All right, next we'll talk about our menu system. So up in our menu system, you can see that we have some very common things like file, edit, modify, create, display, window, ways of selecting. And then down here on the end, we've got our help menu. Now, if I want to change the function of what I'm doing inside of Maya, I can click on this and I can go to, say, animation. Notice these all stay the same. There's help down at the end. And little extras here like muscle and XGen, Bifrost, stuff like that that we're not using. But the point is, you can see that all of the ones in the middle here changed. We now have menu sets that are geared toward animation functions. If I go to, say, rendering, you can see that these change, but this still stays the same, and these stay the same. polygons. This is the menu set that we will be working on throughout this entire course. And then down here, of course, you have let me go to 4 view here. You can see that we have a menu set for each of these window panes, or panels as they're referred to inside of Maya. And all of this information as well, we can just get to a lot easier. So again, this is just taking up space that we can use. So if I hit my hotbox by holding down the space key, you can see that we've got File, Edit, Modify, Create, Bifrost, Help, all of that information that we talked about on the ends of these menus. Right here we have View, Shading, Lighting, Show, Render, and Panels, the same thing that's in the top left corner of all of our panel windows. And then down here you can see that we have all of the menu sets that we were changing right here that appear up in here. So basically it makes it fairly pointless to have all of this information cluttering up our workspace here. If you're modeling right here and you need to get to a modeling function, you're going to come all the way up here and get to that menu. Now that may sound fairly trivial, you know, wow, I have to go all the way up here, big deal. But the thing is, you know, in a 8, 9, 10-hour day of modeling, if you do that 1,000 times, that adds up. That adds up to a lot of time going from there to there, and it adds a lot of wear and tear on your wrist that you need to worry about as well. So there's really no point in having this here when you can very easily just hit your hotbox and go to it here. So my recommendation, turn these off and just never go to them again. It's, you know, if you turn them off, you're forced to go to the hotbox and you'll get used to it very quickly, you know, if you're already used to going up to these menus now. So to turn all this information off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down Control and hit M. And you can see that toggles that top menu on and off. So we'll turn that one off. Now if I hold Shift and M, and that's M for menu, you can see that the one in each window panel goes off and on. Now we do have another one that's not up at the moment, so I'll bring it up. I'm going to hold down Control and Shift and hit M, and it brings up this one that we do get in each of these window panes as well. I do find this one fairly useful, and so a lot of times I will keep that one up, but Control Shift turns it on and off. All right. We've got all of this information up here. This deals with rendering. This deals with what you're selecting, if you're in object or component mode. And of course, we generally do that by just right-clicking on an object. Snapping is fairly pointless to click on these because the keyboard shortcuts are so much easier to use. Snap to grid, you just hold down X. Curve, C. Snap to point, you just hold down V. So those ones are really easy to get to. And we're not changing our menu sets anymore because we're just going to get to it through the hotbox. So we can go ahead and get rid of this one. I'll just go to the status line and turn that one off. All right, moving up here, we have all of our individual shelves up here that Maya gives us. We've got a few extra like Arnold, and we've got an XGen in there. You know, there's a whole bunch of them in here. But while we're modeling, you're probably not going to be toggling between a lot of these shelves. So having this information up here is fairly pointless as well. If I click on this arrow right here, I can turn off all of my shelf tabs. And now you can see we're getting a lot of space to work in here now. All right, last one we'll talk about for the interface here is our toolbox over here. There's really no reason whatsoever that you should be using these buttons. You know, W goes to the move, E goes to rotate, R goes to scale, and Q goes to the select tool. Those are just so easy to hit on your keyboard that you should be doing those instead of going to all of this over here. So that makes these fairly pointless as well. And these ones over here, now I do find these very useful, and I do actually use these a lot. You can click on this one to go to your 4 view. This probably I use more than any other button in the interface. That gives you your outliner and just a perspective view. So I actually do use these quite a bit. Now, in order to get just a little bit more space again, and to get rid of this, what I've done is I've taken some of these and I've put them up on a custom shelf up here so I can get to them up here rather than over here. And that gives us the ability to get rid of this one as well. So I will hold down the space key and we'll turn off our toolbox. So if you're not using these at the moment, again, Control Shift to get rid of those if you need to. And you can see that we have a ton of space in here that we can use. And really everything we need we can get to just by holding the space bar or in this as well. All right, so we'll go ahead and stop this video there. Now, in our next lesson, we're going to go ahead and talk about custom shelves and how we can take a lot of the modeling functions that we do and make it very, very easy to click on them up in our shelf here, and how we can actually take our shelf with us wherever we go and whatever machine we're on. So we'll see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, we're going to talk about setting up a custom shelf inside of Maya so we can get to our commonly used modeling tools much quicker. All right, so you can see that I have a shelf up here that I have set up, and I will include this with this course as well, so you can use mine if you wish, but you should definitely know how to put things up on a shelf. It takes forever to go into all the menus, and if you're going to go to the extrude function 100 times a day, it takes a lot, to get through all these menus. And so putting it up here on a shelf just makes everything a lot faster. So these commonly used ones, I will use these throughout the rest of this course, so I won't spend a lot of time going through the menus, but I thought I would spend a little bit of time and just show you kind of what is in here and how I've organized this. So starting off here, I have delete history right here, which is one you're going to use a lot, and that's just edit, delete by type history right there. And then I've got freeze, transform, and center pivot, which is both under modify. So there's your freeze transforms, and there's your center pivot. All right, this next one is the paint select tool. Now this one gives you a paintbrush so you can select faces and vertices and stuff like that. And you're going to find that under the edit menu, paint select tool right there. All right, this little section right here are just little custom mel commands that I have written. And what these will do for us is if I get a polygon object right here, this first one will toggle X-ray on and off. This one will toggle wireframe unshaded on and off. This one will toggle show vertices, so even though it's not selected, I can see my verts. This one will show the normals of the surface. And let me delete a couple faces here. This next one right here will show border edges. So you can see that these edges are a little bit thicker than the rest of them. So it's showing that border right there. And then last right here is cull back faces. So if I grab this object and cull back faces, any of the faces where the normal is facing away from the camera, it's not going to display those. They're still there. You can see those were right there. We just don't see them in here. Now, all of these functions we can find by hitting Control A and going to the attribute editor. And these are all under mesh component display. So you can see we've got display border edges, the border width. Here's our back face culling right here. Down here we've got display normals, and you can change the normal size on that as well. So if you want to take a look at the commands that I've put in here, you can go to this little arrow and we'll go into the shelf editor. And if I go to my shelf here, DT Polymodeling 01, you can see some of the things that I have. So here's toggle X-ray. Now if I click on that and I go to command, you can see the actual command that toggles X-ray on and off. So toggle vertices, for example, is just toggle vertices, and then a semicolon. So you can see all that information in here if you wish to. All right, moving on, these would just be under the Create Polygon Primitives. And I've got one set up to create a plane, a cube, a sphere, and a cylinder, just because I use those so often. All right, next we've got Combine and Separate. So if we have two of these, grab those and we can combine them under one transform node, or we can separate those out. And of course, you're going to find those under the Mesh menu, Combine and Separate. All right, the rest of these are pretty standard tools, and you should know all of these by now if you're in this course. And by all means, if any of these tools are new to you, make sure you go back through some of the earlier Digital Tutors courses that explain some of these very basic modeling functions. I'm not going to take a lot of time in this course to explain all of these. We're just going to be using these tools because this is a little bit more of an advanced course, and we will be focusing very much on form and topology and not on using the actual tools themselves or the explanation of all those tools. So we've got extrude right here. We've got append to poly. Now this one I've labeled a little bit different. This actually is a chip off. So if I grab, say, these faces right here and I do that, then you can see that it separates all of those. And you can find that under Mesh Extract. But I get confused when I have extrude and extract right here. They look the same. And so if you look at the actual node, this is a poly chip off node. And so I just call it chip. All right, this next one is kind of a weird one. This is the old split tool, and a lot of the times I prefer the simplicity of this one. This hasn't actually been in Maya for several versions now, but this is a really, really great tool. You can't find it in the shelves. You can't find it anywhere in the place that I have found to actually get to it is by typing the command, and that's split polygon tool. Notice these are all camel cased with no spaces there. And so that will actually bring up that tool. And like I said, that is just the very, very basic split tool. All right, the next one is the new multi-cut tool, and this basically does the same thing, but like I said, sometimes I just like the simplicity of this one. So I'll kind of interchange them back and forth, whatever mood I'm in, I guess. All right, so there's the multi-cut. We do have insert edge loop right there. We have slide right there, so I can just middle mouse drag on an edge and I can slide that. And notice it doesn't change anything on the surface, keeps everything nice in alignment there. All right, I have the merge tool, and so I can grab, say, two vertices, and I can merge them together, like so. And then I have the new weld tool right here, which is a really, really great one, because this one does stuff simultaneously, meaning I can hover over different things, like a vert. I can go and I can do edges as well. Let me go out of this here. All right, so now you can see I was in component mode. That's why it wasn't letting me do that. But if I hover over now, I can grab just individual verts, or I can grab edges and do those as well. So very, very handy tool. Let's see, the bevel tool, of course, everybody knows that one. That one's really easy to use. The Boolean difference. I tend to use a lot of these, and we'll use a lot of this throughout the course. Everybody says Booleans are bad, and sometimes they are, but we're going to find good ways to use them throughout this course. All right, transform component tool. This is a really great one. You can grab multiple objects, or components, I should say, and I can pull them along their normal. So this is really, really handy for modeling. The bridge tool, one that we use quite a bit in this course as well. And then we have the reverse normals tool. So if you find that you have some normals that are reversed, and we'll run into those throughout this course, Sometimes we'll just need to reverse the normal, so I keep that up on there. All right, the last ones that I have up here are 3 right here, and normally you can find these in your toolbox right over here. But, being that we want to keep as much space in here as we can and really optimize our space, we don't want this toolbox up anymore. So we'll go ahead and kill that. And I've gone ahead and brought those up in there as well. And as we were talking about earlier, all you have to do is go in here and look at the meld command that I have in here if you want to put this up on your own shelf. But again, you can use mine if you wish to. So the 3 that I use very, very frequently are the outliner and the perspective view, my 4 view, and then this one will actually bring up our UV editor as well. We probably won't be doing UVs in this course, but I like to keep it up on my shelf because it is part of modeling function. All right, so that is the basic shelf that we're going to use throughout this course. We'll hit the menu occasionally here and there. There'll be things that we will need, but for the most part, these are the ones that I use very, very, very often. And so again, as a modeler, we have to be good at modeling, but we have to be efficient. We have to be very, very quick. And so going up into this and just hitting extrude really fast is so much faster than going in here and all right, what am I on? Faces or edges and extrude. It just takes forever. And so I won't do it in this course. I wouldn't do it in real life, and neither should you. You should optimize what you're doing. So from this point on, this is pretty much how we're going to work. We don't have much of an interface up here. Occasionally, I will shift Control M to get to this right here, but a lot of this stuff I have up here anyway, like X-ray mode, and here is toggle wireframe unshaded right here. We talked about that one. Toggle the grid on and off. Sometimes I will use that one, but for modeling, we don't really use a lot of that. So Control Shift M will get rid of that, and then of course Control M and Shift M gets rid of all of those. So I'll hit Control M for menu, Shift M for menu, and Control Shift M for menu. And now we have a nice clean interface that we can work with. All right, so if you have a shelf that you have put together here, and one thing that I did forget to mention is when you're in the menu system, if you want to add something else up here, all you have to do is hold down Shift and Control and then click on it, and this will show up on that shelf. So if you want to put other things up there, you can do that as well. You can actually go into the, let's see here, we'll go into the script editor. And my window's not going to come up, it's on another monitor, but that's okay. You can go into the script editor, you can highlight text, and you can middle mouse drag it up here as well. That's how I created these ones right here. All right, so let's go into here, and we would save all shelves. You can load a shelf from here if you wish to as well. And we should take a look at where these actually live. All right, so I'm going to go to my computer, into Documents. I'm going to go into the Maya folder. Here's my 2015 X64. And inside of Prefs, you have a Shelves folder. And you can see in here, I have Shelf DT Polymodeling 01. So if you put it inside of this folder and you reboot Maya, it will actually show up the next time you come in here. And of course, you can find it under this little tab right there. All right, so there's a quick look at some of the functions we're going to be using and where they're located on the shelf. So in the next lesson, we're going to get modeling. In this lesson, we're going to set up our image planes for our guitar model. All right, so to start off here, let's go to our 4 view. And before we start bringing in any image planes, what I like to do is bring in something that we can use to measure with. So I'm going to go to Create, Polygon, and I'm going to make a cube. So the reason that I do this is we can base the scale of our image planes based off of this cube. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in 97.5 for scale in X. That is the actual measurements of our guitar. Very, very important note here that we model everything always at all times to proper scale. This model could be brought into another scene or anything like that where the scale would be important. You don't want to have a scene and import an object in and it's too small or too big. So you always want to model to actual scale. So 97.5 centimeters is the size. All right, so now we'll go to our top view here, and I'm going to click on this button right here, and that will bring up our window to bring in our image planes. And of course, very, very important at this point in time that you have your project set. And so I'll kind of show you what happens here. So I'm going to go to Desktop, Strap Project, and I'm going to go to my source images. And you'll see that we have quite a few of them in here and quite a few different sizes as well. Everybody's video card is very different, and so you might not be able to handle an 8K image for an image plane. So these are very, very easy to swap in and out as we need them. So when we don't need the detail, we'll put a 1K image in. We can swap it out for a 4K later on if we need to, and so on. All right, so I'm going to go to image plane full, that's the whole guitar, top 1K. Okay, so there's our image plane. Now, if I go up here and I get my measurement stick in here and I grab this and we'll go ahead and scale this up. And we can kind of move this to wherever it needs to go. Just keep scaling. So you see we're right there. We've got a little bit extra over here. So we're going to go ahead and move this, scale it up just a little bit more. And that 97.5 measurement is actually from this point. The strap locks are not part of that. So we'll go just a little bit more. And maybe we'll get this nice and centered, our neck. We'll get our neck centered on the grid line there. All right. Just checking my measurement right there. All right, so that looks good. Now, we're going to go up here, and I'm going to pull that down a little bit so it's out of the way. We don't want to be modeling right on top of this. So go ahead and pull that out of the way. All right, so now I'll go ahead and go over here to my side, and we'll do the same. I'll click on this, go to Desktop, and we'll go in Source Images, and we want full side 1K. All right, so there is our image plane, and we'll pull that back a little bit. Now, before we move on, I want to show you something here. I'm going to click on this image plane, do a Control A, so we can go into our attribute editor. Now, if I look at this path right here, you can see that it's looking on my desktop for this folder and this folder, blah, 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 blah. Basically, this is a absolute path. So it's looking on the desktop in this folder. And this isn't what we want. We want this to be a relative path, meaning we just want it to look in source images. So notice there's nothing in front of that now. So this is a relative path. So now every time I set my project, it's just going to look in source images for whatever I open up. So you want to make sure that that doesn't have all that information on the front end of that. And this is a very good sign that my project was not set when I brought this in. So I'll do that again with this one. Okay, so there's source images, and I'll just delete that information. And now that is actually set. Well, you see now once I hit enter, it actually did go back. So let's try this one more time. But this time, let's go File, Set Project. We'll go onto the desktop, and I'm going to set that. And so now I'll go in and I'll grab this. So desktop, and we need the full side. And if I scroll over, notice that is gone now. So let's see if we need to fix this one still. Okay, that one actually did take. So those are a relative path. Those are good now. All right, so let's go in here and let's grab this one. And now that we have our top aligned, pretty easy to use that information to get the rest of them in there. In fact, what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and scale this a little bit this way. And so now what we're doing is we're actually setting a width for this. All right, so I'm going to grab those verts and I'll just Alt arrow down to get that set. And I'll do those as well and nudge those. So now we have the actual width of this as well. We don't have a height yet, but we can do that very easily because if we grab this now, I can just scale this. We'll turn our grid off so you can see. And I can use this same information to get this lined up. Okay, so it looks like we're over just a little bit, so I'll nudge that. And maybe a little bit more, and you can zoom in a little bit more just to make this a little bit more precise if you wish to. All right, that looks good. All right, so now let's take this and we'll push it back a little bit, somewhere around there. We'll bring this one down again. We just want these nice and out of the way. All right, we can get rid of this information as soon as we set up our back one. So let's go ahead and do that first. Now, we're going to go ahead and go to our bottom view. So there's our bottom view. And let's go ahead and grab the full back 1K. And of course, we're going to need to scale that up a little bit. Now, the problem that we're facing here is you can see that we don't see this information. And you can see we're getting quite a bit of junk moving through here as well. So we're going to have to clean this up a little bit in order to be able to see our geometry on top of this. You can see if I move it on top of that image plane, then we see that image plane. So in order to just kind of clean this up a little bit, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this one. I'm going to make a new layer. And we're going to call this planes. And we'll go ahead and grab this one as well. And we'll right click and add that to the selected. So now I can turn those on and off if I want to. Okay, and then one other thing that we're going to do, we're going to go to this image plane. And we're in the shape node for it. I'm going to click on looking through camera. So we only see those looking through that actual camera. All right. And now we can take this one, and here's our geometry, but notice we don't see it. But when I move it up on top here, then you can see we can see that geometry pop up right there. All right, so we'll move that up a little ways. And of course, we need to go in and scale this to fit. Nudge that in place. All right, that looks good. All right, so now we'll do the same thing. We'll take this one and we'll add selected objects. Control A, looking through camera. And now you can see that those disappear nicely. And if I click on this one for template, now I can't grab those any longer. We do still have our cameras in here. And so let's grab those three. We'll go to visibility, and I'll type in 0, or you can type in off if you wish to. All right, so notice I can't grab these. Now, if I did turn this off, I can still grab these and move them around, which isn't a good thing. So that's why turning on this template is great, because now I can't grab any of those. All right, one last thing that we need to check here, and I'm going to turn on my grid for this one. is we want to make sure that we are modeling this on top of the grid. And it looks like right now we are going to be modeling right through the center of the grid. So we want to move this one up a little bit. And that's easy to do. We can simply grab this image plane and we'll just pull this up a little bit. So maybe about there. It doesn't really matter, just as long as it's on top of that. All right, so now you can see that everybody is in alignment, and we can now start to model on top of these image planes. In this lesson, we're going to start to model the body of our guitar. All right, so if you take a look at the scene that I have open up here, we're in O5 Begin. And you can see that our image planes are already set up here. Pretty much the same thing that we did in the last lesson, except for this one, we're going to keep it nice and simple. And we have a scene with just the body in it. And we don't have a lot of other things cluttering everything up in here. So makes modeling just a little bit easier if you have access to image planes like this. If you just have the image of the guitar, then obviously you're going to have to make do with that. But for this course, just so we can keep things nice and easy and very, very precise, we're going to go ahead and roll with this. So you can see my image planes are on a layer called planes_LYR, and they are templated. And we can't see them in the rest of the scene here. So again, if this is new to you, go back to the lesson before this, where we set up the image planes for the entire guitar. Once we model this, we'll go ahead and just bring it into that file. All right, so before we begin, probably the most important thing that you can do is to come up with a plan and to look at all of your reference material and see what we actually have to accomplish here and kind of think things through the entire process and how we're going to do this. All right, so let's open up this image and let's take a look at what we have here. So what you're going to see is this is a fairly flat surface all the way through here, and these things are just screwed right on top of that flat surface. And if we look on the back, kind of similar. We have a very flat surface right here. Now, if we look at some side views here, you can see that all of these distances are about the same, and they are fairly flat as well. So from here to here, from here to here, there's that one again. And you can see it's kind of a repeating thing going all the way through. So it's almost like a big ribbon shape. There's some things that are cut out here, but for the most part, we kind of have this ribbon shape that goes along the sides. Now, on the back of this, if I can get back here, we do have this cut out right here, and you can see it's a nice perfect arc right here, and it slopes straight down. And then on the top of this, we do have this one that slopes straight down. This is nice and flat as well. So we've got this flat surface. We have this flat surface. We'll do this one after that. We might as well just, continue this little ribbon shape all the way around this thing. That would be very easy to do. So if we were to go in and create that ribbon shape, the correct thickness, and then we can fill in the top, we can fill in the bottom as well. But once we do that, then we can cut this out in one big swoop. We can just take a big cube and boolean it right out of there. Then that way we can keep this nice and flat right here. We don't want to get a lot of geometry built up in here and have a problem getting this nice and flat. Same thing here. Once we get that ribbon around there, we've got one big face here that we can cut this out. Then maybe do some edges like this and bring this one down. And there you can see that a little bit better. Gets a little bit thin right there. And there you can see that nice straight edge. And there you can see it cut out right there. And you can see that this is about half the distance that it cuts down there. And there you can see that one coming where the forearm would be. Okay, then we've got this piece that's going to need to be cut out as well. And this is where the neck bolts into it. So we're going to have to cut that piece out. And then we've got this little piece right here, this little corner that we're going to have to take out. You can imagine a point there and a point there and a point there and just one big triangle sitting there basically. So we've got that. All right, now once all of that is done, then and only then will we start thinking about beveling this thing and getting some of these edges. We want to get all the primary forms done first before you do anything at all. Then we move to the secondary and the tertiary forms on the surface. So if you take a look at this, we've got this nice big round bevel right here that really goes all the way around this thing, all the way through here and through there. But you'll notice right here, it kind of tapers down and it gets a little thinner. And it tapers right there and gets a little thinner. And a little bit thinner right there than it is there. And if we look right here, you can see right there is a very tight bevel on that one. Really tight bevel right there and all the way through. And that's where this thing has been cut. So if you look at this bigger bevel was there already. It probably went all the way around, but once it got chopped off, then it made this nice sharp edge right there. Okay, and then you can see it right there. Now under here, now you can see where this one tapers down into this smaller bevel. And that comes across here and then it tapers back up to the bigger one there. So we have varying degrees of bevels on this. And you can see a lot of them aren't incredibly perfect. You know, all of these ones around here probably are, but you figure this is a block of wood that somebody cut out. And, you know, they're doing this by hand. So some of these through here, some guy with a sander is probably getting some of these on here. And so if you'll notice, there's little discrepancies here and there. So we might want to think about that when we're doing this. You can see it looks like this bevel is just a little bit bigger than that one right there. This one's nice and tight right there. And you can see how this neck plate fits on this as well. And there you can kind of see that flat one there. And you can see the rounded bevel on that one. And there you can see how the neck actually bolts onto that as well. All right, so a lot of reference in here, a lot of stuff we can look at to we really see the taper down on it right there. That's nice. So I've got a lot of reference in here that I shot, so we shouldn't have any problem. So just to recap a little bit here, let's talk about the bulk stuff first. We've got this ribbon that goes around the whole entire thing. I think that's the first thing that we're going to do. Then we'll fill in the top face. We'll fill in the back face. Then we'll have a nice, good primary shape, exactly where it needs to be. Then we'll go ahead and cut this. This is called the tummy cut. So we'll go ahead and draw an arc through here and cut that out. Then we'll get this booleaned out, this nice slope down there. And then I think we'll go ahead and cut out this neck pocket right here. We'll get that cut out. And then we'll cut this one out right there. And then at that point, we will have all of our secondary shapes done as well. And then we'll go in and we'll start beveling this whole thing and getting all that taken care of. Now, one thing that we do need to do to finish this off is you'll notice on the back of this, there's this plate. There's this little block inside of there. And so if you look at this without this plate on there, this is a big hole, big square hole right there. And then this hole goes all the way through as well. So there's a little bit of a hole in the wood right there. And last but not least, we need a hole for our plug right here. We need a hole where our pickups go down in there because we'll actually see the wood through these little crevices right here if we don't cut those off. This one as well, this switch, these won't really matter. We won't see down below them, but we will need a little bit of a hole right here just so this can fit down in there. And then last but not least, we've got where the strings go through the bridge and they attach to the block back here that we were looking at. And so we'll need a little bit of a hole in the surface there. So if you look at our image planes, you can see that these holes are in there. There's that little one for the little neck plate. And here's the one for that switch and the plug. And here's one for the pickups and the bridge where the strings go through. We're never going to see these, so they don't have to be pretty. Um, they just need to be functional is all. We just need to get that airspace down in there so we don't see the top of the guitar and this wood surface through those. All right, so with that, we're going to go ahead and take this. This was our measurement for this to make sure that everything lined up perfectly. And we're going to delete that. And now in the next lesson, we'll start to build our guitar.